the initial configuration. So the initial configuration, the default IP address comes as 192.168.1.99, but you can change it afterwards and give it a name. Then we have logging into this. So we have interfaces. On these interfaces, this shows, if you look at this shows like the physical representation of the FortiGate device in terms of the port numbers that are there. If you look at this, we have this FortiGate 81E. FortiGate 81E is one of the small model of FortiGate device that you can have for SMBs and small organizations. So we have port 1 to port 11, port 12. Yeah, that means this particular device has 12 ports that we can use, and it has two one ports which can be used for internet facing links and all that. So yeah, FortiGate device can operate in three modes. It can operate in a NAT mode, it can operate in a transparent mode, and can also operate in a virtual wire mode. A NAT mode would means that you can set up FortiGate device, and each of these ports would represent a network. If you're familiar with your IP addressing and all that, you know that a network contains subnets, IP addresses, and subnets, and the subnet mask determines the network of maybe the devices you're putting in there and all that. So each of these interfaces in the NAT mode represents network. So this interface 1, which is port 5, the LAN interface port 5 here, we have its own IP address, and this is a network on itself. And this port will serve as a gateway to any device or that will be connecting to that. So this port can be connected to a switch, and the switch will be able to now distribute the IP addresses within that network to devices you are connecting it to. That's the basic LAN, local area network terminology. So each of these can have IP address and their network. So you can see that there are different IP addresses on each of these ports, depending on what you want to assign to each of those ports. So that's in NAT mode. But in transparent mode, it means that the FortiGate can actually act as a switch, in quotes, as a switch. It means that you can combine all these ports into one, and they will just be in a network, and you can use you can now, and the FortiGate would be in the flow of the traffic, be able to inspect traffic going in and out. You can also implement antivirus, IPS profiles and all that. So we also have the virtual wire mode and all that. So looking at this NAT mode, configuring each of these interfaces will just mean that you can put them in zones. So let's take this as for an example. So on this device, we have port 3 and port 2 that are connected. So port 2 is our local LAN, which is, so looking at this, the role here, you can set up the interface. This is LAN interface. So the LAN interface, by choosing LAN, you are telling FortiGate that you want this port to serve as a LAN interface, which means that your users within your environment or within the network will connect to this interface as probably their gateway to be able to reach other network or browse to the internet. So you can set up the mode of acquiring an IP address. It can be a manual DHCP, auto managed by PAM or PoE. So what I've seen most people do is either they have addressing mode as manual or DHCP. If you have a DHCP setup in an environment, maybe you have a DHCP server as Windows server or something else, you can use DHCP. You can also assign IP address manually here and all that. So assigning the IP address manually, you can also ensure that administrative access is granted to the device, to the FortiGate device through these protocols. We have HTTPS, HTTP. HTTP is not secure, so I would disable HTTP. We have pinging. If you enable pinging or disable, if you disable pinging, that means that if if you try to access this FortiGate device on this interface or with IP address 192.168.1.100, you won't be able to ping it. You won't know whether it's is up or not. So you always leave pinging on. And HTTP access means that you can easily access this device on this interface via HTTPS, which is this. So that means that you can grant administrative access to the device using HTTPS. And every other protocol here has what they do. So, for instance, FMG access means there's what we call FortiManager, which is used to manage multiple FortiGates at the same time. You can push configurations, policies at the same time to different FortiGate devices in different locations using FortiManager. This protocol gives that access to give that privilege to be able to integrate FortiManager with the FortiGate device. We have Radius accounting. If you are setting up Radius server and you want some level of accounting, you enable Radius. If you want to access this FortiGate using SSH as well, you are going to also do that. So we have receiving LLDP and CDP. If you are familiar with Cisco, you know what is called CCDP, to be able to recognize devices that are connected or your neighboring devices and all that. So this ensures that FortiGate is able to recognize neighboring devices that are connected in it. So you can set up the DHCP server with this interface. So don't forget that this interface, which is port 2, is a gateway in a NAT mode on FortiGate. So it can also serve as a DHCP server to be able to give, IP addresses, automatically give IP addresses to the connecting client on that particular network. So you can set up DHCP server using 192.168. Depending on the range you want to allow and all that. So there are other things you can do. So you can also say device detection. It means that if this is enabled, any device that is connected within this network to this interface, FortiGate will be able to recognize the MAC address of those devices and can be able to tell you the kind of device they are, whether they are IP phones, whether they are Cisco device, whether they are mobile phone or PC that is connected. This can also ensure that they have that level of visibility to that. So we have security mode. If you are concerned about, implementing and enforcing captive portal, you can also set this up on security mode and all that. So that has to do with everything that has to do with interfaces and setting up your port for the LAN. So when you set this up for the LAN, you just connect it to your switch, and your switch gives IP address to the device that will be connected to it. Then we have looking at port 3. Port 3 would serve as your WAN interface. Your WAN interface is where you connect your ISP link to ISPs like MTN, cyberspace, and main one and all that. So that your device can be able to have access to the internet. You set up your IP address the way you set up the first one. If you it's always not advisable on the ISP side, on the one side, to give administrative access based on HTTPS and SSH. Why? Because your public IP address is the IP address you'll be inserting here is a public IP address. That means it is routable over the internet. It is detectable over the internet. So an attacker can get hold of your public IP address and launch an attack on the FortiGate device and have access maybe via HTTPS or SSH. So it's always advisable to disable HTTPS and SSH on a one port interface. Then after that, you just click OK and you're done. So looking at this setup, one of the things you want to also enable on and be sure of is to do your static routes.